Okay.
Adrian, you got a little.
Just so you know, right now it'll be
Your flavor
audio.
is active.
I know. Sorry.
That's okay.
I love this beard, but good lord, it gets in the fucking way. I know.
It's okay.
Being a bear is hard.
That's a way to start up the stream.
Shade fan for that, because facts are facts, America. That's what that is.
I mean, we're laughing because it's true.
Well, right. That's why I got stumped into silence. I was like, I could not dispute that.
No, it's true.
It's just another point of drag, children. So,
is there any way to make my little picture bigger because it's so tiny?
oh, to see yourself?
Well, I can't say how I look in here. Does everything look good? You guys tell me if this looks like garbage. Like,
you
hey.
can make yourself bigger because like right now, are you in the corner? Like
no,
little
I'm
in
in an open room.
No, on your screen.
No. On your screen, are you in the corner?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So scroll it down and put it in the middle, and it's to get larger.
Oh, there we go.
Skype.
See, you made yourself bigger that quickly.
HD is not doing me any favors this morning.
Oh wow.
I mean, you are kind of serving up freshly fucked face, so there ain't no complaints here about that.
That's okay. I don't need to worry about that. Anyway.
There's only a few things
that
I prefer about that freshly fucked.
Oh, honey, that's what I needed was to see Hadrian prancing off camera.
I look away for a second and I miss all the good stuff.
It's okay. Right, Jeff. It's okay that you didn't see it because it probably would have dispelled a little bit of spank mank. Just so you know, it was.
Are you kidding? There's no way. He could do. No. Hadrian could do no wrong.
No, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying if you have this masculine fantasy of him being all dom top daddy on you, him like queening out, going off camera may not necessarily be the thing that's
then you obviously don't understand how I feel about Hadrian.
Okay, I know. I kind of know how you feel about Hadrian. I'm sure at some point we all kind of maybe feel that way about Mr. Hadrian.
Anyways.
I have a problem with fantasizing people a certain way and then the reality, and I'm like,
it's shattered. It get a little shattered. It's twofold for me. Like, there has to be like a break and then a shatter. So there are breaks and then there are shatters. If too many things hit the fantasy enough, the fantasy is shattered.
So there's like, it's either just a little crack, so it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just a little broken.
Yeah.
Or it's all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like a wine glass when a soprano hits a high note.
Yeah. That kind of thing.
I mean, that's not really the case, but still.
Yeah. I tend to see people in views of like 7 minutes of heaven. So like if I fantasize, like I see things as a limited interaction, but then the more I get to know a person, it's like they become like, instead of being like a YouTube video, now it's like a whole fucking like, amazing masterpiece, and it's beyond Technicolor. And then that becomes problematic because I'm like, God damn it, you got family and kids and like a spouse and pets and not what I was.
Life is so complex. I understand.
I wanted to recognize you as an object, not as a human. Can we please get back?
Right. I love it when daddies like sucking their dick or whatever in the Macy's bathroom or whatever I do on weekends, and the guys are like, "Yeah, suck it, cocksucker. Yeah, take it." I'm like, you're calling me names, but you're the one here who's cruising. You're the one who's lesser. As far as I'm the one who's using you. You're not using me. I know, right?
Look at you being all empowered while you dick sucking it.
I know. I'm the one who's doing all the work. You just came in and.
In this case, this is a definition of the power bottom.
Womp, womp, womp.
The bottom
okay with
of
that.
power.
Yeah, true.
You're like,
True.
yeah, I'll let you call me those names.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like they call me faggot and cocksucker, and I go home and tell my boyfriend he called me a faggot and cocksucker while I blew in my mouth. Well, I'm like, you're trade, and you can't even repeat that term. What are you gonna do? Home and say, "Oh my God, honey, this faggot called me trade at the bathroom." No, I'm not going to say shit. I went home and been like, "Honey, smell this." That's grade A trucker daddy.
I love having you on the show, Hadrian.
There is a part of me that feels like there is sort of a sitcom reality that I am missing out on by not living near you as a neighbor. Because I could understand, like,
Does my breath smell like big cheese?
Right.
Oh, no, just a
Right.
little, just a little. Here's a mint. Like
Smells like
we're
daycare.
oh,
Daycare.
wow.
Here. Take a mint. We're about to go meet the neighbor. Surprise, surprise! Sitcom fantasy, in sitcom reality, the new neighbor is the guy that sucked off.
When are we all going to make it out to Western Exposure? When are we all going to make it out to Western Exposure? Hang out with me.
Oh,
Girl,
You
I got
do
so
know.
many things that have to get together before that happens. But trust me, it's on a list. In fact, I have a very good friend who has actually I have a handful, less than a handful, anyways, of good friends who have talked about, we need to go out there.
I've thought about it too. Hold on, and
My problem
Shopping.
is, I'm thinking, okay, I'll go. I'll probably have a good time. I'll also be very distracted. And then on top of it, there's probably a half dozen of you motherfuckers out there that I already know. So
Come
like-
on.
it'll be a little bit of a reunion-ish, kind of.
And they'll all be naked.
Yeah.
Shut up! I don't want this. I just want.
Speaking of people that seem like sweethearts, Wes is one of them.
Yeah.
One of the grand poobahs that puts on the event. So
He is. I always forget how fucking hot he is. Every time you're fucking 6'6" and like 300 pounds, and you're just like the biggest, beefiest guy I've ever
wait,
met.
he's how tall?
He's pretty fucking. He's like 6'5".
Oh, I thought he was like 6.
He's pretty tall. He's up there. He's tall. He's beefy.
Wow.
He rivals Bailey in height,
Oh.
and he's
All right, I
a
gotta
hairless bear, and he's
file that away for later.
Well, apparently the Futes have their kids, so they can't join us to lust over Hadrian while we talk about Bathhouse Etiquette.
Oh,
Oh, no.
Oh. Well,
poor
hello.
babies.
I am Mel. What was I talking about? What was I talking about? What was I doing? Oh. Fuck, I can't remember now.
Okay, so I hate to like cut the pre-show banter.
I know. We gotta
But
get started.
yeah, because we've probably only got about an hour.
Okay.
Try and get.
Because I still need to get like food in my belly before I get dressed and get ready for work and go to work at 2.
Me. Rah, rah, rah. Anyways, let's go.
All right. Switch it. Let's see here. I need this. I'm gonna try the computer sound, but this may not necessarily work. So visual cues, everybody. Visual cues. Yep, sound sharing stopped due to unexpected error because for some reason you can't just share sound because Skype is stupid. Anyways, here we go. So here's the visual cue. You can see the sound here.
Got it.
All right, and a 3, and 2, and a 1. Sunday, March 10th, 2018. I'm Jeff, or 2019. Ooh, years have gone by. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
And that makes me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
Welcome to Cubs Out Loud, the Bear Podcast of Indeterminate Length, episode number 501. And for some reason, my overlay's fucking up again. Shit. Anyways. And we also have the lovely and talented Pub Hulk, a.k.a. Hadrian, right below me because of reasons. I like it when he's below me. Although I've never actually experienced it in real life, but you know.
There's still time.
So good.
Jeez.
And off the rails we go.
Again.
We're almost doing a weird version of the scene from what is that? When Harry Met Sally. I wanted to say something about Mary. I'm like, no, that's not right. Completely different thing.
No, but you'll look like her after you're done.
I don't know what's happening.
It's okay. It's not you. I'm sure of it. I thought I fixed this. Anyways. Damon's starting to get bigger and get smaller. It's weird. Anyways.
He's having a very Alice of Wonderland experience at the moment.
Jesus fucking Christ. I'll figure that out. In the meantime, let's do this.
Let's talk about sex.
All right, Gary. Honestly, this is all you guys. We should probably just had a threesome thing to stick with you guys because I don't know anything about bathhouses because I've never been to one. I don't plan on going to one and anytime soon, at least. And I need to fix things. So, Gary, can you explain or at least start the conversation because I can't help.
That's okay.
Yeah, I gotta mute in the meantime while I try to fix things.
I understand.
Try to fix Damon.
Try to fix the video feed. So, first off, I want to welcome back our longest standing guest host in COL history.
Oh.
Yay!
Here for episode 501. That's right. It's 501st episode. Please welcome back to our lovely little podcast, our lovely, so lovely, and fun, well-educated, bank the house down for his 28th appearance.
Oh my God, 28.
Wow.
It comes out loud history. It's Hadrian McQuaig.
I mean, that's like 28 times what? There's at least 3 hosts per episode, so that's I can't do the math fast enough. That's 3 times, I don't know, 80 something loads
what?
Swallowed for me all.
Oh my.
That's 80 something loads I owe y'all to swallow for being on this show, I take it. The first one was promised on a blowjob.
Okay.
Speaking of blowjobs, so today's topic, part of the Let's Talk About Sex series, and previously related to this, if you go to COL422, we discussed play space etiquette. On COL411, we discussed bathhouse experiences, not to be confused with today's episode, which is a lovely hybrid mashup, aka Bathhouse Etiquette. So as I promised last week, children, we are going to get all Ann Landers and Miss Manners up in this shit.
Nice.
So we're going to discuss some things about when you go to the bathhouse, some things to be aware of, probably best practices and things you should avoid. So
this ain't a clinical.
This ain't a clinical. Listen to you. So we thought of all the people that we could have on, that Hadrian, you would probably be one of the most knowledged, experienced, and perhaps opinionated individuals to bring on.
Well, I am quite traveled in the knowledge of bathhousery.
Well, you're not the only one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that being said, there's a couple of points that we'll try to get to in the course of the conversation. So let's just dive right in. One thought of the possibility if you go to a bathhouse is being invisible is rarely an option, meaning
Right.
you'll probably be seen and or watched. So this is not a venue in which you can probably have a lot of, I will say, visual anonymity. Because I
Right.
think it is quite possible to go to a bathhouse and not be known by anybody, especially if you happen to be traveling for business or even for pleasure necessarily.
The first thing I always try to point people out when they say they want to go to bathhouses, I tell them about the equality of the bathhouse. Is that when you go and you cruise most venues, if it's an outdoor venue, if it's a Macy's bathroom, or if you're a bookstore cruiser, or whatever you cruise, the bathhouse is a little more equalizing because everyone is typically in some variety of naked. So, because the first thing you do at a bathhouse is you take a freaking bath. And that's my first piece of etiquette I always try to remind people of, is that the first thing you should be doing in a bathhouse is taking a freaking bath. I don't want to smell your perfume. I don't smell your deodorants. That's one of the nice things about the bathhouse, is that you really are taking away all the things you cover yourself in to make you appear a certain way. The vestiges are gone. So I always point out to people, your drag queens, your closet daddies, and your plain old homos are all equalized, because we're not able to wear the clothes that show how bright we are, or the clothes that show how plain we are, or whatever we're doing to change our appearance. Those are gone.
That is a very interesting thought that I've never thought of before, is the whole idea that you're literally, well, you're naked. You're as naked. Usually you're as naked as you come into the world, or what have you. And therefore any quote unquote mask that you wear, like physically, like clothing or what have you, are off. So unless you choose to, because some people do, and that is one thing that I've seen at depending on the bathhouse, is some people will continue to wear something to kind of give that air of what have you. I have seen the leather daddy keep, like, say, his leather cuffs on, or sometimes the drag queen may keep, like, something that's to kind of just a little bit, which is okay. Like their nails, like something to kind of keep a little bit of the mask they wear on, or not necessarily the mask, but their persona on, which is okay if that's what you wish to do. Yeah, I have seen some people wear accessories in that matter. I've also seen people wear underwear. So more often than not, in my experience, it's been little young boys running around in like little thongy type cover-ups of some sort with a towel in their hand, what have you. But I think you bring up an excellent point, Hadrian, that I too hadn't necessarily considered, that the premise of the space and the utilization in a way kind of universally sets everybody. Like, you get kind of back to set point. Like, we are all dudes, quote unquote, and like this is how we look in that environment.
And I tell people, if you sit somewhere, because there are some people who immediately get undressed, take their bath, and then they go sit in the lounge area, which is sometimes bathhouses will have lounges so you can sit up front and you can watch the door. See who comes in. And I'm like, people, you don't do that, because you're going to be really disappointed, because people who walk in that door are wearing clothes. And you're going to have this idea of them, what their size is, what they may look like, and then they're going to take all that off, and they'll be like, oh, I'm not interested. I'm like, well, if you'd waited till they got undressed first, maybe you could have seen them for who they really are, instead of all the padding that clothing shapes and forms.
So it's funny.
Builds up.
Like, some people like to do that. Like, they'll do it in the lounge. I honestly will not necessarily camp out, but I'll like sit where people go to get to the shower, to get to like the wet areas sometimes, because usually when you're going to the wet areas, you're taking your clothes are already off by that point.
Right.
So honestly, that's only because I have locker room fantasy issues. I'm okay with seeing people come in their day wear, their street wear, whatever that may be, and changing. Sometimes it adds an element for me, especially if I see a gentleman come in a suit, or certain attire that just lends all the more to, I don't know you, I don't need to know you, on that level. But yeah, I agree with you, Hadrian. Like, there's it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, if you want reality to come crashing back in, that is one of the ways that will occur. You know, so, and it is an interesting aspect of how the elements come about. And I liked how you said, you know, the first thing is to clean up. And in a way, it's been rare, but I agree that there has every now and then been okay, this is not a runway. You do not need to be like parading around. I do not need to be gagging on your Axe body spray, girl. Like that's not.
I will say this much too. Like that is one thing. Like please, by all means, like take a shower, you know, before you engage in other activities at a bathhouse per se. Only because if you wear a cologne, if you wear deodorant, if you are just honestly, if you've just like been working all day or have been, you know, it's nice to kind of remove some of those body odors off of your body, you know, and a quick like shower would usually do that. It's also helpful for the, you know, shared pools and hot tubs that you all get into. By all means, like.
Well, that's the thing. Like the body naturally produces a lot of stuff, and you know, while you may think like, oh, I'm clean, like I just took a shower this morning, and it's just a couple hours later or whatever, you may not be thinking cognitively or recognizing like, oh, but after I showered, I lotioned up, and you know, I applied this other product, and not that you need to put all that away, but if you go into the steam room and you know, you actually then kind of humidify aspects about you. So, you know, you get up and leave and go away, and you don't realize that perhaps you left behind, you know, remnants of whatever you put on yourself. And I don't mean like makeup necessarily. I just mean like, and that, you know, that can get into the hot tub water and some other stuff. So just kind of, you know, keep that in mind.
And like it says, and you also you'll probably be seen as watchers, with part of this thing is too, like realize like you're going to get looked at. You're going to get stared at. Like people are going to be watching. Like you said, the guy that like sits at the door, like gets in the shower and literally stand there. Eyes are on you probably from the moment you walk in until you leave. And unless you choose to hide away in your room, if you choose to buy a room, as it were, you know, then there are people are going to stare. You know, I was at a Korean bathhouse when I was in DC, and while no sex, it was a men's only area, and while no sex is involved, this is an actual like bathhouse.
Yeah.
And while no sex was involved, I noticed people looking, and I looked myself because that's just the way it is. We look, and because it's a bunch of naked men like walking around. Right.
It's that environment. It's supposed to be permission to look, in my opinion. In that environment, it is a cruisy environment, and it is a nude environment. Therefore, if you're not okay with being observed, and you don't have some modicum of okayness displaying your body, you will be very uncomfortable at a bathhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you really need to be able to walk around and say, this is me, and really take a level of ownership with at least being seen in that state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I had to adjust to in my first experiences at a bathhouse, that I guess I'd lived I don't want to say sheltered life, but a life in which I hadn't been aware that that's part of the negotiation or the transaction that's going to happen. Like, yes, you get to have these potential experiences with other individuals, but the likelihood that it's all going to be not seen and not heard and, you know, unobserved is not really necessarily the case. Yes, as you know, you were mentioning, you know, Damon, you could pay the rate to rent a room, depending on whether it's the size of a walk-in closet, or a literal, you know, just a teeny little room, so to speak. That's always a possibility if you perform, you know, wow, I almost made a new word, not perform, some kind of like, you know, exclusivity, I guess, factor. Yeah. But there are other people who are perfectly fine with putting on a show. So that's another dynamic that you may see, that they're in one of the public spaces where I've even seen those that have like a platform riser kind of stage with specific lights that I don't want to call them spotlights, you know, or whatever, but they are notably kind of making a focal point visually. sometimes in the past I've seen where where they've brought in entertainment, so that's what's happening in that space. But then there have, of course, have always been people who are like, I'm a star, and then they put themselves up there. So you may or may not want to go get popcorn from the concession stand and watch. Depends.
It always depends for me. It's going to be your level of comfort, essentially. And if you are fine with like showing yourself off and you don't give a fuck, if you have no fucks to give, then by all means you will maybe strut. We've seen the guys that strut like at the bathhouse.
And there is a certain fantasy to be lived out, and there's a certain fantasy in being lived out when you go to the bathhouse. It's not just about leaving behind who you are at the door. It's also about becoming something else. And sometimes that comes with what is the minimal thing you need to be able to express yourself. Like we talked about people who, like drag queens who still wear nails, people who wear a hat, people who wear their leather, like a cup, or wear their underwear. There are people who still wear socks walking around with their athletic shoes. I like wearing my shoes running around just because I want people to know I'm going to be on my feet the whole time. I don't like laying down in bathhouses. I like being upright on both feet. I like having a grip with the floor so I can. Anyway. But sometimes I like to wear a boot. But yeah, there's how little you can bring with you, and then how you express yourself becomes more creative. It's not just about what you're wearing or how you can stand, or because being able to look cool, bracing yourself in the doorway like, hey, buddy, is a very different effect when you're naked. And it can look more ridiculous, or it can work, the mannerisms you use and standing in the lights and using it like a runway can play in your favor. And it's your fantasy to live out. And bathhouses are typically full of these little biomes. Like there's the video room that has the old school leather seats and you sit on a bench and jerk off looking at old school porn. There's the glory hole maze that you sometimes have. There's the steam room, the sauna, the shower, the locker room, the pool. They all have these different areas for play that let you express yourself in a whole new way by where you stand, and where you want to be in the bathhouse is an opportunity to stake your claim on what kind of identity you're trying to advertise to people and get people to engage you on. Like if you're on your knees at the glory hole, we know what you want, honey. Sure. And if you're prancing in front of the lights, maybe you want someone to say, you're beautiful. Let's go back to my room and let me show you how beautiful I think you are. And the guy's like, yes, that's what I wanted. Yeah. So it's all about expressing yourself in a way and getting picked for that purpose.
And part of that environment is about an aspect of respect, how you give it to others and how you're going to get it back. Like you've actually entered a whole like little world of individuals that don't necessarily know each other. But part of what I wanted to talk about on the show was like just the I don't want to call them the rules, but some commonalities of how your behavior can be accepted in certain circles. And there are some things that from place to place may differ, because I have been in different bathhouses and I noticed like based on probably the geography of where the location is, meaning in the country, that the communities behave a little bit differently. Some are a lot more, I don't want to call them standoffish, but they're very observational, especially about faces they don't recognize that are not familiar. And for me, what I've learned over the years is I'm perfectly fine with this, I don't want to call it standoffish, but like there's very much like a precautionary kind of watching, like not knowing who you are, not knowing what your situation is. And at first I used to take offense to it and be like, what the hell? Like, what's all that about? But then I realized like I am a stranger to them on a level like that is not seen because they've never seen me here before. And most likely some of these individuals that are giving me this look over are probably local, been there before. And so there's something that's going on within them and motivating it. And I have to make a decision on how I want to respond to that. And so my feeling on it is, okay, like that's you, however that's handled, and I'm not going to make a thing of it. And when I was younger in the past, I think I was more responsive to that. And in a way, I don't want to say disrespectful, but I just didn't understand what was happening, that some individuals in a bathhouse, are kind of their own community, especially if they go there frequently. There's an aspect that there's a familiarity. And I've even seen whole conversations and greetings that can easily show that these people are aware of each other. They may not know who they are outside the doors, but they know who they are inside the building or within the space. And therefore they, have a certain interaction and respect for each other in that. But to the point of I've seen where it becomes quite obvious. Some of the people understand that this one is the cocksucking whore and will try to gobble up every single penis that walks past.
Yeah.
And, and others, I've actually even seen, which I find kind of comical, where I don't want to say they take turns, but like if multiple people are interested, like let's say there's two individuals interested in another person, one will actually like give a head nod or even a gesture or make a comment about, go ahead. Like I concede or whatever you want to say in that case. You're on mute, Hadrian.
You're muted. Hadrian, you're muted.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Noisy cat. So I was noting that there's something that the zeitgeist has moved away from probably the 70s, way before I was ever in the scene. But I always heard about how it was much harder for bears to be in that scene, and I'm confident that was true. But these days, it's very different in that, at the same time, while everyone's body type is more valid and everyone's is encouraged to express themselves and seek love, and I think that's something that among younger people, younger pretty boys, aren't making snide comments the way somebody would have maybe 20 years ago about a bigger person or someone who's older, that sort of thing. I've certainly heard it and seen it, and I've had to say something to people and had to get people kicked out of bathhouses for it. But that you don't see that as much anymore, because at the same time, when everyone's body is valid, everyone's body is open to judgment too. And somebody who is skinny has just as much anxiety and worry about their body as someone who's bigger. And everyone's looking for some level of approval, and it's okay to give it in some modicum. It's okay to nod at someone you may not be interested in. That's a piece of etiquette I like to provide. There are ways you can acknowledge the presence of other people without cruising, and it really is. However friendly you are out on the street, that same friendliness applies inside the bathhouse. And looking at averting your gaze and staunchly refusing to make eye contact with someone is rude, in my opinion, at least nowadays. It's okay to look at someone and nod and say you're having a good time, that sort of thing. And just because you're talking doesn't mean you're looking to swallow their load.
Exactly. And that's something that is, and I'll just put it out there as a person of color who has gone to certain bathhouses, it is to the point of, it is disrespectful. I'll just put it like that, where you won't even acknowledge someone's presence if you're not attracted to them.
Right.
And that's just like, would you do that? We've heard that happen before. Would you do that at a bar? Would you do that at an event or at a social kind of interaction kind of phase? You probably wouldn't. But somehow the bathhouse experience gives you this feeling of who fuck cares? I'm not attracted to you, therefore you do not exist. And that's the worst kind of thing. It's okay if you can, you can look, like you said, Hadrian, look, acknowledge, give a cue that you are not interested, which you can look and say hello or whatever, and then move on. Like if you turn after that, I understand.
Yes.
If you look oh, hey, and okay, and then you kind of look away or you walk away or something I get it. Okay, you're not as attracted to me. Cool, we can move on. But if you are not even going to acknowledge that I'm there, and you're not going to give me any kind of cue or reference to say that you are interested or not, it kind of leaves it too open.
Right. So, which brings me to my next point about something about bathhouse etiquette is where people flirt and don't know how to get to that next stage. Like there's has everyone here seen Spider-Man Homecoming?
Not yet.
Not yet. No.
How? Guys, it's really good.
I've heard, and
it won that Oscar, and it deserved it. It was really, really good.
Are you talking about Homecoming or Into the Spider-Verse?
Homecoming. Okay. Not Homecoming. No, sorry. Into the Multiverse.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say Into the Multiverse. It's really good. You guys see it. Anyway, I was about to reference the scene from it, but anyway, there's the thing where there's hey, and then there's you put your hand on your shoulder, and you're like, hey, it's like that bit. And some people don't know how to do that second one, so they're in the bar and they're just like, hey, they're like, somebody please sleep with me. yet they don't know how to give that sort of modicum, like, my penis needs to be sucked. You know, that's sort of, they're not giving. They're sitting there. They've sat in the same spot for 3 hours. They have a towel over them. They're in a spot where nobody can really sit next to them. They're just like, why isn't anyone paying attention to me? I'm like, because you're not accessible. That's something I tell people is that when you go to a bathhouse, make yourself available to be cornered or caught or interacted with in a way that welcomes people. Like, leave the spot next to you open. Maybe sit somewhere where you can make friends and talk to people. Maybe don't sit somewhere where it's totally dark and they can't see your face. You know, maybe give people an opportunity to give you that wink and a nod. And sometimes it really is like, hey, you're cute, you're here, but I'm moving on to this other guy. And other times it's like, hey, I got a room. You want to go? And you're missing it because you're like not looking for the signals. You know, so be open-minded with the way people are communicating with you, and be prepared to say, I'm trying to hit on you. Are you hitting on me too? And let that organically occur. Don't be so bottled up and caught inside yourself that you miss opportunities.
So signals are important.
Yes, very important.
Yeah. And I will own that 100%, that signals are important. They can give, and in this world of bathhouse and anonymity and what have you, sometimes vocal cues and commands are not possible. Mm-hmm. There's loud music. It's the same as like if you're at a bar, but there's loud music playing. You're in the steam room and the steam just kind of went off. There's, you know, you're at a pool, you're underwater, you know, whatever. There's going to be these potentials where you're not going to be able to get any vocal cues. You could sometimes, but you know, most of the time sometimes, you know, people don't want to talk at the bathhouse. They kind of just want to let their actions speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. So cues are important, and for me, I know of some general obvious ones, which are yes and no. Like it seems silly and stupid, but it's one of the ones that if you're interested, you kind of nod or you give a wink and a smile and a pat on the shoulder, a caress, a you know, I've had the one that I always find interesting was I had a guy like prolong a touch on the shoulder as they were passing by, like just long enough to like give that I need you to pay attention to me for just a little bit longer than like I'm just passing by. Yes, I'm passing by you, but I want you to notice me. So he put his hand on my shoulder, and then he kept it on my shoulder as he walked past. It was an area where there was people on the floor. Let's just put it like that. There were legs or knee, you know. Anyway, people were getting sucked, and he was trying to get through. I was watching. Let's put it like that. And he kind of walked past, and he put his hand on this shoulder very quickly, and then he put his hand on this shoulder, and he kept it there. And I had to look at him where before I was just looking down, and I looked at him, and he was a nice looking guy, and he looked back at me, and that's when I knew, like, you want me to follow you.
Yep.
You're interested. So that's what we did.
And that's something that a lot of younger people have lost out on, is the art of cruising is kind of a dying thing. Unfortunately, the internet and all of its apps have made cruising such a thing of the past, which is fine. It's an evolution of the community. But those kind of physical cues, physical and visual and all the other things that go into communicating non-verbally, if you've never gotten a chance to do that, and especially some of these young cubbies out there who just have no idea what the hell cruising is, a bathhouse is basically cruising Fisher-Price room. It really is. It is cruising 101. It is where you will learn it really fast. You'll start seeing visual cues in a bathhouse you've seen in public, and you're like, fuck, that guy's 7-Eleven did want to blow me. So you'll totally have those eureka moments, because people don't understand when I tell people about that eye contact. There's this, and then there's this. Just a little too long eye contact is all it takes to let people know that you're interested. And you'll start seeing it at the bathhouse, or you'll get that glance that lets you know I am not interested. But something I will say that the modern times has that olden times, ye olden times of the 90s did not have, and that's and something that Damon was hinting on here just now, consent. And back in the day, it used to be you could go right up to someone in the bathhouse, grab their dick, and then they'd have to say, hey, maybe don't grab my dick. And that's always uncomfortable. Or people just lock up and they're like, I don't want this guy to let go of my dick. Maybe no one will ever touch it again. I should let him suck it. There's all kinds of reasons that people get deer in the headlights and don't like that. Don't grab people's junk in the bathhouse unless it is a really obvious situation where it's all you can grab because it's the glory hole. But make sure, like when someone touching Damon's shoulder, or someone like rubbing my belly, or even like making eye contact, what they're looking for is a confirmation. And you to say, yes, you may touch me. Yes, you may talk to me. Yes, you may come closer. Whatever you're trying to signal to them, make sure you're giving that consent and looking for it as well. Carrie, I think you're muted.
So what I was thinking as we're talking about consent is that there's subtle and direct like kind of moments. A lot of Bathhouse in a way I think can be described as a dance, like that you're communicating things maybe verbally, but a lot of it is nonverbal. So I agree with you, Hadrian. Like there's things about a look. There could be a caress or a touch. There has been many a time in which there's kind of a chase element, at least in my experience, and perhaps this is something that I personally am a fan of or enjoy, that you see each other, you pass each other, you do 6, 7, 8 laps walking around the facility and you see the person and there's like longing glances. You may follow each other from space to space, like into the steam room, out of the steam room, whatever that may be. There comes a point where that becomes tiresome, because it's like I ain't chasing gas all night long. Like, so let's be realistic. What's that? You're still muted.
You're muted. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
He's yelling at Pearl.
Oh.
The cat is like apparently carrying on.
Worse, it was Alexa.
Oh. That bitch always got something to say. But yeah, I mean, I think that in the chase, there's a subtlety about the consent because it's implied and it's building over time. Right. So if you understand that that's happening, and not everyone does, but if you can observe that, or if you're a part of it, then it eventually becomes direct. And then that's when I think the physical contact is not necessarily crossing a line. It's understood that this is something mutual. Right. Yeah. So finally, you or the other person may take a seat somewhere. They may loosen their towel as a drape. And it's basically becoming an invitation to, they man spread as a reference. They're presenting in a way. I mean, it's true. I just realized they could just take their towel off and bend over. So
true.
That's something as well. And that's one of the things that I really don't know if it's something you can learn without really being immersed in the environment and experiencing.
Right, I agree. And you quickly realize that there is a whole spectrum of consent, and you will learn it very, very quickly in a cruising environment.
Yeah.
The only time that I really ever have red flags is when you've got that one guy who stands in a corner, doesn't make eye contact with anyone, but is letting you play with his cock. I'm like, or letting you blow him, whatever, and he's not acknowledging you. He's just, I mean, or the guy, sometimes there's the guy who has a room who's like that, who's just there and he's just laid out. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, actually. And I get it. Some people just want to be used in a way, then that's a turn on for them.
Yeah.
But that also smells of shame to me that I have a really hard time connecting with. And good power on people who can do that. But I need you to tell me, stick it in.
You want. Yeah, true. There you go. Anyway, no, I understand that completely.
Anyways,
like, so kind of things that I think about when I think about, like, especially when we're talking about consent and what have you in environments, there are people that that open the door literally, like they sit in their room and they have the door open. They're just sitting there. Are they on their hands and knees there? Are they laying down in their room? Now, what does that mean? That means take a peek, have a look. If you're interested, walk in or knock or give some kind of notice that you're there. That person then can say, oh, I'm interested, come on in, or oh, I'm not, and let you move on. I have had it happen oftentimes where the guy that's laying, like, obviously out with the dick, open with the towel, if they are not interested, they will take the towel and place it over their body. That is their signal that they are not interested in you. That doesn't mean that literally once you walk past, they will take the towel off and wait for the next person. Again, and as we talk about consent all the time, but one of the things I like to say is like consent could always be negated at some point in time. Like if you're with somebody and
I think as David was saying, you could be in the midst of, getting to know somebody and then things change in that moment. It's happened for me that just something occurred with the individual and I just am not interested anymore. And to be honest with you, it's going to probably be one of two things. It's going to be physical or it's probably going to be behavioral. Like the physical most likely is something is no longer appealing to me about you. Could be that like your ass is funky and you didn't wash it. Just saying. I mean, that may be somebody else's cup of tea, but it may not necessarily be mine.
Something I always caution people about at bathhouses is like if someone breaks off contact for whatever reason, whatever you think it was or whatever they did just before it happened, or however you're trying to interpret it, does not matter. That's what I always tell people. Don't get caught up on the fact your bathhouse buddy decided to walk away. That's not unusual. They may not have wanted to come yet. They may have run out of time. Maybe their phone was in their pocket. Whatever's going on, let it be. And I always tell people, don't really chase people around the bathhouse. Let them go on their own. If somebody plays around with you and they're done, they're done. If they want to come back and they want to flirt with you again, that's fine. Consent can be paused and or negated. And they may come back and be like, hey, I'm ready to get off now. You were fun before. Let's do this. And no one's obliged to tell you why they're stepping away. They can step away for 5 minutes. They can step away forever.
The last time I was at a bathhouse and there was a gentleman, recognized him from online. I may have followed his Tumblr. And we, kind of were near each other and, he was interested. And so I start going down on him. And then about a couple of minutes into it, he kind of like pauses and he leans down and he whispers, which was sort of a turn on. He's like, I don't want to blow my load yet. And he just said it so nicely. And part of me was like, oh, like, come on. Yeah. But I understood it. I respected that it was like, okay, so this may not happen at this moment. And then, of course, I have to deal with my stuff because internally there was a part of me that's like, well, I hope he doesn't go to somebody else. Like, I've already been putting in the effort and the work a little bit right now. So I'm hoping that would, be a thing. And then notably, it had a happy ending for both of us because eventually he, we found each other again later at another time and voila, like he was like, okay, like I've had my fun. I've like seen some people or whatever. You shall be deemed the recipient. Kind of situation. And so, he and I had a really good time and notably it was in a public space and a bunch of people kind of gathered and watched, which has its own thing. And so, then afterwards,
I was kissing Damon up a little bit. We're on the subject of consent, pausing consent, so you don't want to get off or whatever's going on, or wherever somebody would walk away and then you come back. Yeah.
So in this case, it was paused only because they had said, they had whispered in my ear, that they didn't want to come yet, and that they decided to later, make me the rewarded recipient. I won the lottery, and I was perfectly happy with that. But notably, well, it's continued kind of since then because we've seen each other in public, like at notably community events, and by that I mean bear community, and this is even like more interesting how what happens behaviorally within a bathhouse could go into like a public realm, but again, that's part of that consent, like recognizing and not calling it out, I would not do this, and I don't expect a lot of people who have a bathhouse experience, to be like, hey, that was really hot. I can't wait to like pound you again. Like, I mean, maybe in a certain circle of friends, perhaps at a beer pong or something. But in this case, we happened to be at a bear community event, and we just kind of, gave a head nod of recognition because we know who each other is, and we've seen each other naked, and I've swallowed his baby. So, but in this case. He actually was like, he actually kind of basically said something along the lines of like, that was fun and that should happen again. Of course, then I was all like, damn right it should. So Go ahead. I'm just saying. But
and you mentioned an important part of etiquette as well, and that's outside the bathhouse.
Yes.
What happens in the bathhouse typically does stay there. And, when you see people out, again, it's like you're re-engaging all over again. You can give that nod of recognition and then see if that guy wants to go, excuse me, let me step away from my wife and 4 kids and come say hello to you. Or they can be like, I don't know you. You don't know me. Go away. They have the right to engage with you separate differently outside of the bathhouse than in the bathhouse. And that's an important thing.
And you also honestly, to me personally, if I've seen you at a bathhouse, unless we're like friends, like me and Gary, like like that. Okay, got it. We've seen each other, blah blah blah. If we're not necessarily friends, or if I keep it as anonymous as possible, like if I happen to see someone that I've played around with, like on the street, like it's going to be like we first met all over again. To me, it's not there's a difference between like, unless they choose to acknowledge it, I can acknowledge it or not, but I'm usually okay with, I'm more free with that, mentality. Like, I know I was at the bathhouse, and you were at the bathhouse, and if you wish to, bring that up, then by all means, like we can do it. Like Gary's story about like, we should do that again. I'm like, hell yeah. Like I agree with that, but that could possibly not ever happen.
Right.
Until you're both at the bathhouse again.
Right. And there's an opposite form of that etiquette that applies as well. And that's when you see people from outside the bathhouse at the bathhouse. Sure. A lot of people say they don't want to go to a bathhouse. They're like, well, what if I run into somebody I know? I'm like, well, they're there naked too.
Correct.
So that's the first thing to know. But also, you should also know that the bathhouse is not an opportunity to kiki. So maybe don't set up shop in the glory hole booth and start talking about the last 6 weeks of drama or anything crazy like that. The bathhouse may not be the best place for that. I know that some bathhouses, like Korean bath and spas and Arabic bathhouses and that sort of thing, are known as centers of business, and people are expected to have conversations, that sort of thing, and monopolize a room. Mm-hmm. Gay bathhouses do not have that dynamic. Even the one here in Hollywood, people are not in there doing business. They're in there to relieve their business.
So I'm glad that you brought this up, because this needs to be understood. Okay. No, because this is a dynamic that happens many times often, and it's usually those that are like naive or new to the scene or haven't been around, that they don't understand. This is not the gay bar. This is not, this is not a WhatsApp. This is not, Instagram. Your experience there is a common experience with other people. And one of the principles is you're there for a certain kind of interaction. And I understand it may be quiet. It may be slow. So to me, it doesn't bother me if you're going to kind of have like a little conversation, but it's going to be very quiet. It's not going to be distracting. You are not there to direct. You are not there to peanut gallery. You are not there to critique and review. And you certainly are not there to heckle. Because help me.
Right.
I will take the dick out of my mouth and I will tell you to fuck off before I get management and kick your ass 86 at out the door. Ain't got time for that shenanigan.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna smell all my cum breath when I come yell at you. Like splatter. From yelling at you.
Like that's I will 100% agree that totally is that this is typically, like, I understand that things are done in public sometimes, like I'm sucking someone and there's like people around, but this is an engagement between us. Like, your comments, commentary, additions, subtractions, whatever. I do not need a director. I know what I'm doing. Like, I don't need someone. Yeah.
And something else you touched on, I think we touched on just briefly, is that the phones. A lot of young people are not used to going into an environment that may not be hopping right this second, because typically what happens is if you're on a device and you go into some sort of environment and it is not happening, like you're connected to a server or whatever you're doing on there, you're in a chat room, if those things still exist. If it's not happening, you move on to another one. And bathhouses can seem that way too, where people are just running from room to room to room, expecting something to change. And a lot of young people do this too. And I think my boyfriend tends to do that. My fiance now, actually, he tends to do that. Aww. Is that he goes into a bookstore and he's just like zipping around like a freaking hummingbird. I'm like, stay still. Let the guys pass by you, because some people just lurk from corner to corner and you won't see them unless you stop for a minute. So I always tell people, if you're in a room that's empty, to sit down for 100 seconds. It takes nothing to sit there and count backwards from 100, wait for the environment to settle out. Your own moving around from room to room changes those environments as they go. As where if you sit still, you get an opportunity for someone to catch you. You get an opportunity to see someone you hadn't seen before. Someone may come and sit down next to you, and you may think, I'm not really attracted to them. And then they sit down, and you're able to see the 6.5-inch cylinder inside their crotch for some reason. But like, oh, they must have a can of Coke. I would love to have a can of Coke. Maybe if I sit here and talk to him, he'll let me see his can of Coke.
Anyway,
there are reasons to sit still at a bathhouse, and there are very few reasons to bring your fucking phone around. Unless you're like on break from work and it has to be on you, don't be in the bathhouse on the cruising apps. You're not going to get very far. I think you're missing the point.
As a point of recognition, there are some facilities that have posted publicly that devices like that are not allowed.
Right.
And part of it has to do with the change in technology. There was a time that you could have a cell phone in your hand and nobody was going to give a shit. But that's because you didn't have like a super mini computer with video or photography recording. Right.
Yeah,
that
basically.
You would then be possibly fucking chatterbait live streaming out to the world. Like that's not the intent of the space. So
and no. And I think agreed. Like I've seen people go to, and again, like if you need or have to use your phone, like do it in your room. Because I remember a guy that had literally set up like his laptop in his room and was using it to kind of like, for some reason, draw people in somehow. Like he set up a post, like I'm here, like come meet me at the bathhouse, but he kept it in his room. Granted, he more than likely stayed in his room for like 8 hours or 6 hours that he was going to be there, or 3 hours or 2 hours, depending on what he was doing. And then or like have it in your locker. And if you absolutely need to get to it, then by all means, just do it there, like in that little space, because that's sort of a more common place. Or, if you wish to, like, there are common, areas like we've talked about before. There's a little common area where there's like, sometimes there's TVs and, couches and stuff where people can sit and just like not engage in the everything else that's going on around them.
Right.
That's where I think you could potentially use your phone, but be respectful.
Right.
Understand that you have some. Yeah.
I think a piece of that is like understanding, like, I get it. People's lives are important. Like maybe you've got kids you got to check in on, or there's like work email and you're on your lunch break or whatever. I completely understand that. But I agree with you, especially Damon, your point about there are certain spaces. And I've actually been into some bathhouses where I don't want to say like it didn't say this, but it was basically like, here's your cell phone or device zone. And it's usually like a lounge right off the entrance, right at the front. Mm-hmm. And you have to be semi-clothed in that area or absolutely like wearing a towel, something of that sort. And it's kind of understood like this area may be a little better for like a mobile signal, those type of things in that case. And ultimately, I think a lot of what we've recently been discussing comes down to this idea that you get what you want with courtesy. Like you respect another individual and they respect you. And everything's, hunky-dory, copacetic. We're all cool with this. And I think you get way more with that. And you have a good point, Hadrian, about the, like, don't constantly be in motion, because that's kind of a frenetic energy that can stir up a lot of stuff.
Right.
And it just occurred to me, it was kind of comical when you were talking about, like, people doing really quick laps. I was like, that's true. It's a bathhouse. This is not Super Mario Kart. Like you do not have, you don't get rewarded with points or extra, stars or anything just because you're like whizzing around and I get you got to get your steps in, girl, but bathhouse is not exactly the place to be doing that. Could be, but I don't think that's quite what you want to be doing.
So for me personally, this is what I do every time I go to any bathhouse place or what have you, where it's an experience. I walk around with my glasses on, and there's a reason for that, because I don't want to keep my glasses on. So I walk around with my glasses. I'm checking, like, okay, there's a break here. There's something here on the floor that's like right at shin level, and you might want to avoid. It's my way of mapping the space before I essentially take my glasses off, and I'm kind of semi-blind. Not blind, but like I'm nearsighted. So like it's my way to kind of do that. After that, I totally agree with you. Like, sit and chill for a couple of minutes or a little bit just to kind of see what happens. I don't know. I've seen that frenetic energy take away from a space. Like someone comes in and it's a burst of like just unknown, and it totally chops. Like everyone's attention is drawn to that, and it just not sucks all the energy out, but it takes a moment to get things back on track.
Pauses it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it could downright stop things cold.
True.
I mean, I've been in a space in a bathhouse where somebody comes in and it's not quite like, a dark room where someone opens the door and all the bright light shines in, but it's kind of on that level. Like I don't want to say that they burst into the room, like an SNL character in a sketch, but they bring a whole different kind of energy to what's happening in that. And it is honestly, it's really fucking disappointing, especially if it's a group scene. And it doesn't mean that everybody's participating, but perhaps there's a lot of like duos, here and there about, and people are enjoying and grooving, and some people are watching and enjoying themselves. I mean, it's just one of these things that I think you need to try to apply some self-awareness. Like you in and of yourself can have a dynamic aspect to what's going on around you.
And if you don't know how to cruise and you don't know how the flow of a cruisy environment works, or what kind of what happens in all male environments, and what kind of weird hierarchies we create just on our own, because that's something I always point out to people. We didn't invent bathhouses. This is something that's been going on for a very long time, including cruising at bathhouses. We've been doing this for just a few millennia. No big deal. But men not just men, women do this too. They have a whole different cruising environment that needs its own book written. But when all male environments occur that can be sexually charged, they typically do happen. I don't care if you've got the entire Southern Baptist Convention in there. Somebody's pumping some loads in there. But the self-organizing environment of men in a sexually charged system is a incredibly fascinating thing. And it's easy to learn that by just going to a bathhouse. And there is a flow to it. And if you're just paying attention, if you've made it through any kind of Western-style education system where you're following the person in front of you, emulating other people around you so you can discover what the social situation is, you'll be able to apply those here. You'll be able to go in, you'll be able to see what's going on. You'll know that when you're entering a space, you have choices. You can bust into the scene like, I'm daddy, I'm here, where are the boys to suck my cock? Or you can like put it on the corner and say, oh, there's a 5-way going on. And like, I was looking for a 3-way today. And
oh.
So there's the way you move around the place does affect the energy. It is not a system in a bottle that you were a client of. This is not a computer system that you get to log in, glance around a few rooms, and leave. No, you are a physically moving person inside a system of other physically moving people, and you are leaving a wake around you. So be conscious of your movement and try to emulate or be aware of how you are entering and leaving that space.
Yep.
Yeah, and one of those aspects about the space I think that's important is like, and it's not necessarily talked about, but I think you pick up on it, like you were saying, Hadrian, like if through observation is about safety. The environment is meant to be safe for everybody. It's meant to be physically safe as well as psychologically safe. Like it's a space in which people get together to cruise and to participate in activities. That cruising thing, kind of what you're talking about, like this isn't new, as in a way what we're doing is very much primal in terms of the whole like courtship aspect of, copulation, aka sexual relations to, continue the species. We're just not getting it right biologically, if you want to use the word right. And therefore, there's all these
fine. Fine.
Right, but there's a different outcome, I guess, in this case. So spell that how you want. The reality is that there is dancing that goes on. There's preening, there's showing, there's presenting. All of that is
there's lurking,
right? And some people are really into various aspects, including observational watching, because they're voyeurs. So that's an aspect of it. But one of the things that I think is important is to be aware of that the whole space is created so that everyone can feel okay in that space, and more importantly, be okay in that space. But not everything is 100% like lock in terms of safety. And the reason I say that is because some people do not think about how what they do can make things a little unsafe. And one of the key things that's happened, I've seen several times, which isn't necessarily a participant's fault, but when bodily fluids are released and they're not captured in a certain way, they may end up on surfaces such as floors. And bathhouses do not necessarily think in terms of slippage all the time. And that's one of my concerns about, like, when you're walking through a space or traveling through, just be aware of the fact that, you know, most of them are pretty good, especially if they freshly mop or clean. They put up signage, that kind of stuff. But, you know, like Hadrian, you had mentioned about wearing footwear. I've seen that as an often thing because it gives you a little traction as opposed to, you know, just unfortunately finding out that there was a DNA pool on the floor that you couldn't see because of the lighting, and then you do a unintentional death drop.
Or a split.
Yes.
Or a split, yes.
For which you may not have stretched properly ahead of time for.
Which brings me to something I meant to mention earlier when I talked about footwear, and that's that I know that there are bathhouses that allow you to walk around barefoot, and I'm not saying I've never walked around barefoot before. And I'm not saying that it isn't a distraction to have to wear something on your feet at a bathhouse, but I actually highly recommend wearing shower shoes, flip-flops, something comfortable in your feet when you're going around a bathhouse. There's some things like the sun deck, concrete, those kind of things are okay to rub your feet on. They're not going to hurt you, but there's some areas that maybe your feet don't belong naked. I'll be honest. I think I actually got a what was it, corn on my, I don't know, it was like a planar or something like that on my foot, and I'm fairly confident I got it because I went to a bathhouse, and that bathhouse had a tile floor through the whole entire thing, and it was a little slimy the whole entire way. Feet are nasty, and yes, people are there to take a bath and that sort of thing, but you know, feet are nasty.
So how often do you actually wash your feet? When you're
I wash
my
feet every single day.
I mean, I'm just saying,
I've been on a journey myself to wash my feet.
Yeah,
but
some people don't, and some of that shit gets nasty.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the aspects about this space that people need to recognize. It's like going to the gym. Like if you have a local gym that you work out at and you go into the shower area, that is a prime like habitat area for you know, fungus and bacteria and things, even though it seems like a clean environment. And yes, they clean it on the regular because of the amount of, no pun intended, foot traffic that comes in and out of such a space. There is a possibility, and those that don't know, I mean, that's a commonality with gyms that, you know, I'm perfectly fine with people who bring in antifungal like sprays or whatever and use them, you know, when they go to change their footwear and that kind of stuff. I get it, because that's the most likely place that you're possibly going to
get it,
have contact with something. And the bathhouse is not really any different when it comes to that.
Yeah. And agreed, 100%. Like I tend to wear flip-flops. It's just, you know, it's easy to pack in a little bag. You can carry them. Some bathhouses even provide them, depending on the bathhouse. And you know, wear them. Like if you need to, or wear your own like sneakers. Like Hadrian was saying that he wears a sneaker. Like go to your comfort level, and understand that not everyone's going to be walking around barefoot. Some people will be, but some people won't, and it's okay. Like you don't have to be totally 100% naked. And if you are, cool. Like, I can't. I've always had issues with my feet, so I tend to wear flip flops whenever I go to the showers and whenever I walk around. Can the sound potentially be annoying? Hell to the yeah, but it's only for when you're walking. If you stay still,
right. If you have enough awareness, you can tell the difference between someone walking in flip-flops and someone getting pounded in a bathhouse, because most likely people are getting pounded when the rhythm is faster, because the likelihood of someone running in a bathhouse is pretty minimal unless there's an alarm and everyone needs to get those shit and go out the exit. That's a whole different situation.
Also true.
Emergencies.
Yeah.
Emergencies happen at bathhouses.
Yes, they do.
Sometimes you got shot in the eye. Sometimes you got shot in the brown eye. Sometimes somebody made a mess all over you for some reason. Sometimes you slip and fall. Sometimes, you didn't know there was a puddle come there and you sat right in it. There's all kinds of things that happen at bathhouses. There's sometimes fluid in places there's not supposed to be. Sometimes it's just sweat. Sometimes it's hot and it's gross and it's sweaty. Steam rooms are gross. The reason you're at a bathhouse is so you can take a bath quite often. So use it. I usually take 2 or 3 showers, and I try to shower between playtimes unless I'm just really liking how I smell and I really like the smell of a daddy bear's cum in my beard. Bathe. Not everybody's into that, so keep that in mind. You understand that you could be rejected or accepted as a result of your hygiene, and a bathhouse is a prime place to seriously take control of that aspect of your life. So
fucking true. Like, no, I'm just saying, like,
I know
sometimes you like that, like, musty, like, after come, moment. Like, some people are all 100% about that, and some people are like, get that fucking crusty, musty ass dick away from me. Like, please. Just like that guy who's doing his best Stevie Nicks on the stage under the lights at the bathhouse and trying to get laid, and that guy who's running around with 5 loads leaking out of his butt. You can be accepted or rejected based on your choices, and nobody is obliged to accept anything. So keep that in mind.
True. And there's a whole like kind of cruising aspect, even to just like the shower room aspect of things. Like I've known people where I'm kind of like, girl, you gonna be in there all damn day, like brushing and washing your hole? Like it ain't that dirty, I don't think. But I get it. Like there's even a dance going on within that. So I've noticed that there are people who, I don't know if they're into water, and I don't necessarily mean water sports, but like that they enjoy being in that kind of an environment, that they may take somebody to the shower room. It could also be a very subtle way of being like, I just need you to be a little bit cleaner because I just saw you like go to Pound Town and take 3 guys one after the other, so maybe we should just kind of wash up a little bit, right? And I think there's a great subtlety in a way to kind of handle that. Well, everyone is respected and enjoys that kind of stuff. And another thing that I wanted to say in terms of this topic was basically, while going to a bathhouse can be impulsive, it can be last minute. I think some of the most successful times that you go is if you're prepared. And I mean that in like kind of a pun way in reference to prep, but also like just thinking ahead about what the experience is, what your expectations are, and what may or may not happen in terms of that. So it's not just the physical. It's not just about you helping do DNA extraction or vice versa for you. It could also be about that there's your mind space and where you are. Some people use it as stress relief, literally in that my job, my family, my home, my whatever is going on is really kind of bringing a lot out of me that is just problematic, and so I need a distraction, or I need kind of some stress release. I've seen many a time in which someone is being very physically aggressive with another individual. It's consensual, and there's a part of me that is intrigued just because of my imagination. Like, I wonder what was going on that led to this moment, that they are deciding, that they're going to be this dominant and this aggressive and this physical. And, it could just very well be that they needed that. Maybe outside of their life is a 180. Maybe they're very quiet and, in their aspect, and they just work in cubicle farm and they don't really, have a lot of interactions necessarily, but they're completely different in the space. And this is how they express themselves and get their frustrations or whichever out.
And definitely setting your intention going into a bathhouse is a very important thing. And some people say, I'm going there to get off. I'm going there to get in the hot tub. Whatever you're going to do, a bathhouse, by the nature of what it is a place to go and relax, whatever that means for you. So just to circle back, because I think we beat around the bush on this, but I want to be really explicit because we've talked about prep, we've talked about condoms, we've talked about bodily exchange, we've talked about taking loads. Things happen in a bathhouse, and they do not happen in a bubble. It is not Vegas, and even Vegas isn't Vegas. What happens there does not stay there. You can bring all kinds of things out. If you're married, if you are playing around with someone, if you are whatever your situation is, if you are the most fine, upstanding gay activist of the community, everybody is still subject to the same things without clothes, without protections in a bathhouse. The only thing you have is your body and a bath. Those are the only things you really get. So condoms are usually very much available at bathhouses as well. Lube is usually in little tubs in the corner. A lot of bathhouses, especially in the 80s, during a lot of scares and a lot of confusion about what's going on, bathhouses became community centers. And here in LA, every single bathhouse is also a testing center. You can go in there in certain times of the day and get your STDs tested, HIV test, the works. They can help you find treatment options. Get yourself checked. If you're in these environments, even if you're just if you're there and you're being risky, then you should understand what that means for your life and the other precautions you should take. If you're walking around barefoot, you could get a plantar wart. If you walk around bareback, you could get butt warts. I mean, there's all kinds of things that occur.
Yeah.
Be prepared, make your choices, and understand the consequences of them, and take all the chances you can to mitigate them.
Agreed. You should be risk aware about what you're doing, and know that you're making decisions and choices, and the person that you're with are making decisions or choices, for both of you or for you. Right. So if you wish to be 100% safe and all this stuff, good for you.
That's right.
There's stuff there. There's things available. You can bring your own, whatever you wish. I have a bag that I tend to bring with me that is full of lube and condoms and all kinds of other stuff. I check it pretty regularly because I, clear out older condoms and stuff, mainly because if I wish to go to a bathhouse with it, I'm I'm ready to go. I know what's available. And again, you're going to make those choices for you. If you are on PrEP, if you are doing things, you are getting tested regularly. If you wish to get tested, do so. Forewarned is forearmed, if that makes sense. If you I just as an example, if you wish to be my door is open, I'm bent over in a room, whoever comes in, do whatever you want. If that's what you are going to do, you've made that decision. Right. You've opened yourself up to that, and that is your choice to make. So whatever happens after that,
are all part of the consequences of that choice.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things to be cognizant of, is that we talked earlier about respect and consent and those dynamics. This also goes into play when you're literally going to play with another individual. I understand. We all do. A bathhouse is a highly hormonal environment, and there's a lot going on and could be a lot going on. And yes, it's easy to focus on what your dick wants, basically. Mm-hmm. That does not necessarily mean that you have to throw everything else out, and disregard reality, which is STIs are a thing. Right. There's stuff that goes on, and you can have a conversation with a person. It takes literally seconds to ask someone about what their, last testing, was, or if there's anything that you need to be aware of, and to let other individuals know. If you know that there's something particular about you, you can let an individual know. Perhaps recently, you've had, as an example, that you've had an anal tear, and so bottoming is not really for you. And the other person obviously wants to top you. You can have that conversation with them without really getting into a whole explanation and a backstory.
Yeah, right.
And just let them know that, I'm not, at this time, interested or whatever.
I don't want to bottom. I do not wish to bottom right now.
I've been in a situation where I whispered over some really hot fucking Santa Daddy. I'm like, hey, are you on PrEP? And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, I said, hand me a condom from that bowl over there.
Right.
Again,
and that's, while it's an educative moment, you have to make the decision for yourself, which is the priority.
You don't have to be the education point. You just have to be the education vector.
Yeah.
Or you could just put things in a different order. So you put the enjoyable, sexy time first, and then in the postcoital, you could have a little conversation about what blue pills are and how they can be beneficial. If that's your thing. What he might stay. You might stay. You might have
it's nice very rare. Time. The last thing people will see is me being like, bye.
Oh my! Look at the time. No, but no. Yeah, I know we're joking kind of a bit, but it's true, and it is. It's okay to if you wish to educate, but sometimes given the environment, sometimes you just don't have time. If you wish to move to your next participant, then so be it. But again, everyone is making decisions and choices for themselves, and whether those align with what you want to do is how it ends up going. You may find that super hot fucking sexy daddy bear that you've always wanted and get to that moment and it something disconnects for whatever reason, and it's just not going to be a thing. And you are okay with saying no. Like, it is fine to say no. It is fine to say not interested. It is fine to give some physical cue that you do not wish to participate any further, or you don't want to participate at all.
Yeah. And let's talk about the people who break all the rules we just talked about, who don't understand etiquette, who don't know what the hell they're doing, who are just being rude, who are commentating and sneering at people and not getting tested and not taking a bath and wearing shower shoes. Those are trolls. And they're locked in bathhouses. Typically, you identify a troll pretty quickly by having any random hot guy stand in an open, empty room where there's no one in there with him and have him masturbate. As soon as he starts coming, a magical face will appear that's doing this. They do. I'm serious. They're in the walls, and these men just race out of the walls like they phase out of nothing, and they're like any drop of cum that can land in the direction is like water to them. It's like they've been in a desert their whole life. I'm telling you, that is the grade A way to identify a troll, is to have somebody come in a corner and suddenly these 6 faces appear out of nowhere like baby birds.
I still want to scream at you with your mouth open.
There are always going to be people at bathhouses who just don't fucking get it. Maybe there's something amiss with them. Maybe they just never learned right. Maybe they didn't have a really cool Cubs Out Loud podcast to turn to in the 80s. All they did was just go to bathhouses and figure shit out. And they figured it out wrong.
Or my perspective is there's a possibility that they just have no fucks to give. Meaning they're quite aware of all the rules and still don't give no shits. And that dynamically is perfectly within their right. But the downside is they, are individuals that we should be aware of, that they are out there, they do exist, and how you want to, I guess, be in the space with them, I guess is really what I'm trying to say.
They wish to be around. And again, like I always say, the forewarned and forearmed. If you have the knowledge, then by all means, if you wish to use it, use it. But if you don't, okay, then don't be surprised if you don't get anything.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna. I mean, not to kind of burst that kind of bubble, but if you sit in a room and you don't do anything and you don't give any kind of cues and you're doing all these other things and you just don't, people have a way of body language and understanding, that's something I don't necessarily want to avoid. You get a bunch of red flags. If there's too many red flags, you're going to move on. You're going to avoid. And I've had it, I had one guy, I was at, was it Indianapolis? It might have been Indianapolis. And there was this guy who, you're coming out of the woodwork. That was so fucking true. I thought I was alone in this room, and I just stopped and I was watching a TV, and I took my towel off and I was just kind of jerking off and seeing if someone would come by, and this guy came out of nowhere and he was here, on my side, and he I didn't see him at first, and then I felt the breath, and I was like, "Ooh, who's that?" And, and I look over, and there he is, and it's not someone I was at all interested in. And he grabbed at me down here, which is one of my big nose, and I kind of turned away and gave the body language of I no, thank you. But they kind of kept coming closer. I'm like, no, so I had to physically say no.
Yeah.
Loudly almost. No, thank you.
Right. And that
we get it. You're a Trump voter. You think you can just grab me by the pussy. This is not
No.
And that's another aspect to be aware of, is that may happen. I think out of the three of us, everybody doesn't wish that to happen, that you have to be a little personally aggressive with another individual because they're just not picking up signals and they're not aware of what's happening. you need to demand the respect of another individual. So you may have to actually verbally say, no, I'm not interested, or physically move their hand away, or create a distance in between in that case. And a lot of that I ended up learning when I was younger because I just wasn't aware of the rules, of the road, so to speak. And then over time I started figuring out like, oh, sometimes you got to tell a bitch, no, I am not interested, because they just don't get it.
And something we haven't talked about in this as well is that these are not just one-on-one interactions. Sometimes these are multiple on one. Sometimes you'll have a group of 4 guys that are totally into each other, and then guy number 5 shows up and he is just not on the same page or is somehow not gelling with the rest of the group. And it's a whole big dynamic, and it's hard to decipher. You'll probably never get the right answer. You'll never know why. Sometimes the group just doesn't work with this 5th guy at it. And things disband. It happens. Sometimes good times break up. Sometimes you are part of the. I've done it where I've walked into a room of like a big old orgy, and I'm like, I want that one. I'm taking that one with me, and I will instigate the group, and I'll be like, hey, want to go back to my room? I mean, there's all kinds of things that occur. It's complicated. It's cutthroat. It's messy. It's trolly. And then you'll figuring out that dynamic, how 5 people can tell one person no or rearrange the group dynamic because of them, is something you'll get a lot of experience and learn how to communicate well. And the one thing you can always say to anybody is no. And sometimes they know, I can play with these 4 people, but you are on the no list. And some people will respect that. And sometimes you just got to be like, if everybody's into this and you're just not, you can be like, this isn't for me. And sometimes you got to bow out. And I tell people this all the time. If you are in a room and you are not liking what is going on, you are uncomfortable, if whatever's going on in that space, leave. It's not that hard. And it's not, no one's going to think less of you. No one's going to make fun of you or think you just can handle it. And there's nothing negative about that. Bathhouses are big open spaces of different types of play spaces. Go to a different one and try something out. Go back to the lounge and chill a minute. Do whatever you got to do. Yeah. Be comfortable. And,
exactly.
Just be respectful. Right. It's not that hard. And occasionally you're going to run into people who aren't following those rules. Yeah. And you can avoid them and tell them no. And sometimes it's always okay to go to the front desk and say, that motherfucker right there is being a pest. And they'll talk to that person and handle it. It's not that it is a playground. Talk to the teachers. They will help you.
Yeah. Right. I went into, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, it's just like, and sometimes that uncomfortableness can be just the physical environment. I was in a room, I was in an event, and I was in a room, and there was a nice amount of people in this room. It was getting hot. It was like the action was going, and there was a lot of people doing stuff, but it was just warm. Like, I don't know if it was, just the heat was on or whatever, something was going on, and it just was too warm in this room. Someone came up to me and was interested, and I was like, well, I'm going to need to leave because it's just too much. And I was interested, and I'm like, you can come with me if you want. He was like, no, I'll just stay here. I'm like, okay, fine, and walk away.
Right. And basically, you pass on an opportunity, and it's not that you don't want to. It's just, I can't in this space anymore.
Right.
And that's pretty typical, I think, especially in like saunas and steam rooms. The temperature is elevated in the air, and not everyone can hang. And you're not technically meant to be in those spaces for long periods of time. That's another physical dynamic to be aware of, for your own well-being. I love steam rooms over saunas personally. Saunas are okay, but the dry air after a while, I'm like, I'm perfectly fine being in a steam room, but or even in a hot tub or a whirlpool. But your body can only handle so much in terms of the exposure and the environment. So keep that in mind. And one of the last things I want to say is hydrate.
Yes.
You're in a space, you're walking around, you're exercising in various activities. So if there's a drinking fountain, and granted it may be city water and it's not Fiji, bitch, just have some water. Or some of the bathhouses that I love actually have a water dispenser, that's hooked up. And so you can, get a little cup of water or whatever, or something from your locker to keep yourself hydrated.
And there's usually refreshments or a machine. Some of them are fancy. Some of them, these really fancy bathhouses, I don't know what the hell they are, but they have full open bars and shit.
Yeah.
So if it has facilities, make use of them. Get snacks. Stay there a while. Also, some of them have mouthwash down in Orlando, because Orlando nasty. They have a Listerine dispenser in the bathroom, which is super duper helpful.
Yeah. Sometimes your mouth gets a little gross.
Right.
And finally, just to kind of put it up there, because Owen kind of mentioned it, because he said he got hit on while working at the bathhouses. So big thing. There are going to be people there that work there. Like, like there's the front desk people, there's people that help clean up, there's maintenance people, blah, 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 blah. They are employees, not like guests. Therefore, like they are, to be frank, off limits. You know, if they wish to on their breaks or whatever, I don't know, I don't care, you know, so be it. But like usually you can tell the difference between them because they're usually
they're usually fully dressed. And the key thing is like, while they are a feature of your experience, they are not your play toy necessarily.
Right.
So
they are serving of the same respect that you would give to anyone else who's in who's working their day away to let them do their work.
Right. And that's one of the key aspects for me is like, I mean, I've seen actually a number of times in which the staff may linger or possibly become involved in things, but that is not a guarantee to what's going to be taking place. So just be cognizant, which means to be aware, you know, that that's an aspect of what takes place. So, and given the time that we need to wrap up with what we're doing here, one of the things I wanted to say is the purpose of this show is to help educate people, because not everyone knows necessarily about this type of stuff. And I think it's understandable that you can go into a space and think you know things, like, because I've done that many a time, and then realize like, fuck, there's like a book or a couple of books here of, you know, things that I was completely unaware of. So I'm glad that we were able to provide this, you know, opportunity for folks so they could get at least a better understanding of it. And, you know, maybe you've been mildly curious about bathhouses and have never gone, or have presumptions based off of, I don't know, because porn tells you certain things about this is what a bathhouse is like. And that's not necessarily, you know, what the truth is in that case. So anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up the show here, Hadrian?
I'd say bathhouses are definitely fun places. They are meant to be environments where you can spread your wings, try new things, explore, and you can also stick to the track you've always known. I think that as our community changes and cruising becomes less of a thing and people are more focused on online apps, I think that there's something that is lost, but is constant.
And I lost everybody. Be right back. Everybody gets to enjoy the sound of everything ringing.
I broke it.
No, I don't think it was necessarily you.
Okay.
Damon's out for the second time, and I think we all lost it. So we're going to blame the internet.
So can I continue, or do you need to get set back up?
You can continue.
Okay, so I was going to say, environment. It's an environment to have fun. I think it's part of any young non-heterosexual person that is curious about that kind of environment and thinks it's a place that they could thrive. I think it's something they should explore and get an understanding for. It's a look at history, and it's a look at future in both ways. I think that there's a changing environment going on there. The old ways of cruising are being, refined and moved into those environments and made into an experience that can be explored in a safe environment, instead of us having to worry that, oh no, we're having sex on this pier. Is it going to collapse into the ocean today? Oh no, we're having sex in this Kmart. Is this guy a really hot daddy bear, or is he a cop about to arrest me? Those are the kind of risks that are being taken out by using a bathhouse. It is a permissive environment. Make use of it and be respectful about it. It's been there for a very long time, and it's part of our heritage as gay men. Gay and bisexual and pansexual and all my other alphabetical letters of the alphabet sexual deviance.
Which is continuing to grow. We won't get into that. But hey, guess what, folks? That's the end. Aww. Aww.
Sad puppers.
Such a cute dodo puppers. Scritches. Anyways, so there's plenty of ways to contact us, and I need my doc up again for reference. There it is. You can pop over to our website, cubsoutloud.com. Shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail, sexy or otherwise, at 361-COL-TALK. That's 361-265-8255. Put that in your speed dial on your phone. That way you can leave us a voicemail at any time. You can find us on various social media outlets at Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and right here on YouTube at Cubs Out Loud in the appropriate place of the URL. Join our Entourage chat at tinyurl.com/telegram-col. You can subscribe to our Google Calendar, find out when these shows are scheduled to air at tinyurl.com/col or calendar-col. I can't speak today. You can also get various pieces of merchandise accoutrements, such as a Proud Out Loud shirt that I'm wearing, or a Consent is My Foreplay shirt that both Gary and Damon are wearing. Damon is wearing the pup one, and I believe Gary has the bear one.
That would be correct.
So maybe that's maybe you need to get a pup or bear one there, Hadrian.
Or one of each.
Look at that.
Yeah. You can also become a patron. Help us improve our setup here, hopefully. After all these internet dropouts, I'm not sure how much that's going to help, but at least to get the computer running. At patreon.com/cubsoutloud. Also, that will help subsidize our hosting costs, which will be coming up soon here. Thank you, all you patrons. I appreciate it very, very much. You can rate us on iTunes, subscribe to us to Google Play Podcasts, and give us a thumbs up on Stitcher. You can find me anywhere on the internet as Box Puppy, Box Cub, Box something or other. You can find Damon at Theater Cub 79.
I'm here.
Most places. Oh, there he is. Damon, where can people find you? I was about to list it off for you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that, folks. I'm Theater Cub 79 on most bear related sites, or you can find me as pup_umbra on Twitter.
If you would like to chat with me on the socials, the biggest place you can do it now is go to Twitter and look for GareBear73XXX and follow me there.
And I'm Hadrian, and you can find me at thehadrianshow.com.
And with that, let me actually do this so that you guys can kind of see it, because it can't share the sound because the Skype sucks. But say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one, y'all.
No. I had time.
Oh.
I am pissed off. It always happens like this way.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, we're just going to stop for I was literally talking to Jeff about it this morning. It'll just stop for a minute or two, but it totally fucks everything up.
Well, it's,
Anyway.
not like Damon, you and I both lost internet one time while doing COLDR at the exact same
True.
moment.
True.
That was exciting and fun. Not.
Speaking of somewhat on drag race, so Gary, are you fully caught up on The Masked Singer?
Yeah, I've watched all the way through the finale.
What do you think?
I had the top two of the top three rate. I knew who Peacock was. I knew who the bee was. I did not know who the monster was. Still not familiar with who the monster is, but that's just because of my life experience. I've heard the name, no clue who they are. don't know anything about
Yeah,
them.
it's like I know him, but I can't think of it. But all I
Was-
can say is that him doing Sam Smith's "Stay with Me" song was beautiful.
I was happy that the Monster won because to me that's kind of the epitome of that type of a competition show. Well, some elements are manufactured and yada yada yada. I appreciated that like the unknown individual was the one who won because ultimately that's the concept of the show. Like you should be surprised at who a person is as an artist in that case. So yeah, it that way.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched The Masked Singer, you should. It's my version of Drag Race because they're basically all in drag.
Very true.
When
very
you think
true.
about it, it's just a different type of drag and things.
We're all born naked, and the rest is drag.
But yeah. Hey, guess what, folks? I'm gonna stop streaming.